It's coming up to 5 past, so that feels like a good time to just get going. I'm going to be sort of a little bit staccato at the beginning as I constantly kind of look across to try and allow folk to join us as they roll up. So excuse my inability to speak eloquently. But welcome to this event here, which has come about because of the artists we're working with. Really, it's a conversation that they were having, which had a lot of energy and a kind of excitement within it, and therefore they, with out of a sense of, I think, generosity and kind of enthusiasm to share with rest of us, suggested that we might make a public event to celebrate the launch of issue 8 of the Kingsgate Postal Service. So I, as in my role at Kingsgate, was absolutely thrilled to encourage this event to take place. So I'm absolutely beside myself that we can do this tonight. So it will be my pleasure in a moment to introduce you to Luke Burton and to CAConrad. Before we do, I'm just going to just say my name's Dan Howard-Birt. I'm the director of a small organisation in northwest London called Kingsgate Workshops. We have a project space. Our project space is closed in 2020 temporarily for obvious reasons, which led to a loss of opportunities for artists and for folk to come to us to talk and to see things and to engage with artists' works. In that lull, we were fortunate enough to be supported by Arts Council England's Emergency Response Fund to create a mail art initiative, Kingsgate Postal Service, which appears on a fortnightly basis through the letterbox of subscribers around the world. So that is what Kingsgate Postal Service is. We're 2/3 of the way through this Arts Council funded run of projects. And then here we are, issue 8, Luke Burton, CAConrad, what a pair. So essentially today, Luke and CA are going to share with us a little bit about their practice, what they do, how they think, what they make, what they write, and they're going to share that with us. And then Luke and CA are going to talk amongst themselves about and give us an account of the sort of evolution of this small publication, this kind of exchange, this conversation. They're going to talk us through kind of how we got to this glorious combination of rituals and this wonderful penny, which becomes central to the performance of these rituals. So that's what's going to happen. It'd be thrilling if you could keep yourselves muted to stop feedback, but we really do want to open up this event to questions from you. So please write those into the chat, and I will do my best to harvest those and shepherd them, is that a mixed metaphor, towards the artist towards the end of this conversation. And but failing that, we'll just open it up and we'll rattle some questions and some ideas around. Our two artists today are very generous with their time and their brains and their enthusiasms, and are willing to kind of answer questions from the likes of you and I. So what a treat. So without further ado, Luke Burton's an artist based between London and Cambridge, where he's currently artist in residence as a visiting fellow at Girton College. Luke's work has been shown in exhibitions in London, Lisbon, Rome, and Stavanger, among other places. In this strange year of minimal real space activity, he still managed a solo show at Bossenbaum and a 2-person show with Morgan Wills at Bossenbaum and Sid Motion. Both of those shows were in London. CAConrad lives between Europe and the US and is the author of 9 books of poetry and essays. Their book, While Standing in Line for Death, won a 2018 Lambda Book Award. They also received a 2019 Creative Capital Grant and a Pew Arts and Heritage Foundation Fellowship, and the Believer Magazine Book Award, and the Jill Opt Book Award. What a lot of awards. CA regularly teaches at Columbia in New York and Sandburg in Amsterdam, and the film The Book of Conrad can be viewed on CA's website, so make time to do that. So these are the artists that are joining us. So let me hand over to Luke and to CA.
Thank you, Dan, for that very, very generous introduction. And yeah, it's great to do this with CA and yourself. One thing we didn't decide, CA, is who would go first with the.
Oh, I don't know. That is a good.
We have to flip a coin. Should we flip a coin? I have.
Yeah,
one.
Why not? Okay, yeah, heads. You get heads. How's that?
Okay, that sounds fair.
Moonpenny head.
It's tails.
That's me first then. Great.
Oh.
I like being the tail end of things, being first of the tail end of things, I guess. Okay, so I'm going to be very brief about why I do what I do, and then just show you, and then read a few poems from my latest ritual, and then we'll talk about the collaboration. So I'll try to be as brief as possible with this. You're gonna think, well, why is this person telling me this information in the beginning? But I began writing in 1975, poetry, and I was raised in rural Pennsylvania. Around all my family are factory workers. And why this is important to the story is that years later, why I run away as a teenager in the 1980s to Philadelphia, but it's around 2005 when I realized that there's an issue that I'm having with my writing and my life, and how they're not matching up the way many of my friends' work and lives were matching up. And then I started considering the fact that their backgrounds were very different than mine. I'm talking about friends whose parents were doctors, lawyers, engineers, dentists. But my family, they were, like I said, they were factory workers. So the more I thought about that, the more I realized that's the issue I was dealing with. So when I was raised by these people, so when they go into work, they're spending 12 or more hours a day next to machines in these factories producing. So they become an extension of these machines. When you become an extension of a machine for that many hours, in order to survive that activity, you need to shut the present down. And then they live in these default systems in their brain of the past or the future. And when I speak with my family, I can hear it. They're either depressed about the past or anxious about the future. There's no sense of the present. And it's a symptom, of course, of this mechanism that they've developed to survive in these jobs. So what I did was this is in 2005, I started doing these rituals to anchor myself in the present. That's the simplest way I can talk about this. And the first ones I did, I ate a single color of food for a day for 7 days. I would also wear the color. So the first was red. I would eat through the color spectrum because, why not? And while I was eating red food all day, I also was wearing a long red wig that I'd found in a dumpster behind a beauty academy. I was living in Philadelphia at the time. Here's the thing. I like to go to these giant, you have these like giant corporate bookstores in London. What are they called? Like Waterstone, something like that. I don't like spending money in there, but I like using them as a library. So Waterstone, Barnes and Noble, those sort of stores. If you go to the business section, there's always a subsection on marketing research. And I like looking at marketing research because I view marketing research as the new anthropology. They're studying our behavior to sell us things we don't need. But I want to see what they're finding out so that I can incorporate it into my work. One of the things that they discovered at this time period, at least I read this in 2005, the study was much earlier, that as much as 80 to 90% of human communication interaction is nonverbal, which was extraordinary to me when I read that. I had no idea that was the case. So what I did was I started thinking about that in terms of how I'm having nonverbal communication all day and how that might be affecting the way the language comes out of me when I'm producing language for a poem, especially with these rituals. So when I was wearing this wig, I have to tell you about the wig. So it was half straightened, like it was, I'm assuming this person failed their beauty academy test or something. I don't know. It was sticking out of the dumpster, and it had, it was half straightened and the other half is permed, like a real blowout perm. So when I walk around the street with this my hair was sort of like this, you know, it immediately drew the attention of everybody who saw. And I just had this nonverbal communication all day that was extraordinary. And at the end of that first day, I realized two things. One, that it was successful. I was rooted in the present the entire day. And the second thing was that there's no way I would have ever written that poem for any other reason at any other time. So I began to realize very quickly that orchestrating the space around you as you write or perform or as you create art, it changes the outcome. So I've done many of these. Let me just skip ahead to the one I'm working on, finishing up. It's called Resurrect Extinct Vibration. And I travel around the United States. Well, I'm of course not traveling anywhere right now. I'm in Seattle right now. But I usually travel around the United States to teach and perform. And when I was doing that the past 3 years, I would lie on the ground and flood my body with the field recordings of recently extinct animals. So I'm about to turn 55 years old on January 1st. And in my lifetime, we've lost 70% of the world's wild creatures. So by flooding my body with these sounds, there are actually 9 ingredients, that's just one of them. But I don't really want to, that's enough. Let me read some of the poems resulting from that ritual. So this is when these are the newer version, these are the newer pieces. This is when I brought the ritual inside with me once the virus started. So can you see that just fine? Okay. I'm just going to read some of these. Did someone come in this store who has it? Does everyone working here have it? Singing got into everything until finally my mind could not rob me of the day. I'd have to say, one of the things about this pandemic is it's made me think about all the people I know who died of AIDS when I was a teenager and in my early 20s in the 80s and 90s. And I think I roughly estimate that I lost about half of everybody I knew as a teenager in early 20s. For years after friends died of AIDS, they still danced with me in my dreams. Did survivors of the bubonic plague dance with their dead? Who will dance with whom in a year? Let's keep safe, dance together in person. My best ideas come with an ear resting on his chest, a holding pattern of the dove. Feel our shared thought thicken the path. It is good to take it easy on days when we remember we are going to die. We win everything for remembering we are poets. Names of water and wind taper until they resemble everything. Eyes closed, face tilted into rain. Here is the voice to never let us kill ourselves. Some days I can only watch movies old enough every actor is dead. This is not morbid. It is the exquisite transitory chewed upon. Reach down, pull out everything we were told not to touch. Gears of the mountain inside a sleeping bear. My friend Rex told me when he was dying of AIDS, promise me every day of 1993 will be the best day with or without me. 27 years later, the promise still kept. M drew his face the day he was diagnosed HIV positive and kept drawing as his face changed. They were sublime, like Munch's self-portrait with Spanish flu. He called on his deathbed at his parents' home to say his father was in the backyard burning the stack of drawings. I wanted to make him stop. Please don't, he said. It's his last chance to deny me. How can I deny him that? The cat leaves a little heat in the sofa where I rest my hand. What world between warmth and fever, planet and star? In this poem, the words I give you will run out. There is nothing I can do about it. From the moment I fell in love with making the letter G as a child, I foresaw the peripheries making G as a conjuring G, 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 curve and return G, G, G. All I wanted for Christmas was an X-ray of my hand, making G, 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 pleasure and forms, uniting in a life I choose to love no matter what. My grandmother Pearl said, throw your wallet away the moment you lose your job. There were many excuses for losing jobs where I grew up. She was the only person in my family in the 1980s who asked about my dying lovers and friends. She said to me after a week with 3 funerals, there was a beginning to this pain. Now you know the middle. But the end too must show itself. When you survive this, love will destroy all doubt. She was right. She always was right. We had much to leave behind in order to follow the river to the sea. My grandfather said, always remember you come from people who wash after work. Migration can change a family. Some die before the end, others born along the way. I know my poems by their shapes and have felt their edges in my dreams, the side of a poem rubbed against my cheek like a bone comb or a lover's toe. I think that's good enough. Thank you.
Thanks so much, CA. There's so much bubbling away in there, but before we jump in with that, and I think maybe the conversation that you and Luke conjure together might pick up on some of those moments. But the rest of you, if you've got things that you want to ask, please start popping them into the chat and we'll come around to those at the end. So Luke, I'm going to hand over to you.
Great. Thank you, CA. That was fantastic. Okay, well, I'm going to share. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see that. Great. Well, I'm just going to really try and give you a kind of whistle-stop tour of the last 3 exhibitions that I've done, last 3 kind of solo shows over the last 2 years. And just to give you a little bit of context for the edition and my contribution to it. And I suppose there are a couple of themes in the work which I'm kind of trying to draw out. And probably the most central one is this idea of scale and its relationship to, in some ways, its relationship to intimacy, which is something that I'm thinking a lot about at the moment. So this is a show I did 2 years ago called Becoming Sweet New Styles, which is actually a kind of a very minor misquote from the poet Lisa Robertson from her book, The Men, which I'm not sure if CA is familiar with, but yeah, so the show was these 3 folding screens across the space, like a kind of decorative barricade, and these paintings of bejeweled, bare-chested figures high up in the gallery space above the eye line of these screens. And I was kind of, interested. I'm still kind of mulling over this question of the decorative, I suppose, in relation to art and culture and society, and in particular the kind of language of ornament and ornamental symbols, and how these things kind of persist over great expanses of time. These forms kind of persist. So a lot of these symbols of ornament, which you can see in the fronts of the screens, the vase of flowers, these fountains, and this peacock, they're in a way symbols of power and symbols of triumph, but a very particular kind of triumph. So a kind of particular tradition, a Western tradition, you could say a white male tradition, even. So I was interested in working with these in a way, these quietly quite dangerous symbols. And also, I was particularly interested in the two-sided nature of these screens. So they're painted, on both sides. So that's the front of Fountain Award Scheme. And this is the back, which is, you have these kind of medals, and you're not sure if they're war medals or maybe, sporting medals. This is the other side of the other one. And they have this figure called Ambivalent Man. Ambivalent Man he's a kind of archetype that runs through these screens. But anyway, I was interested in the screens as a kind of obsolescent thing, who has space to have a screen, but also the way that they kind of created this sense of front stage and backstage, that we all have in our lives to an extent, this sense of our inner life and the life that we present. So, and also how they're paintings, but they're also kind of temporary architecture, and they command a space, but they also, in this case, they're not making a room environment, so they're kind of somehow quite oddly empty as well. So and what kind of intimacy do they suggest, I suppose, with this enclosed side, was a question I was thinking about. So then another show, I'm just trying to draw attention to these kind of contrasting scales that I've been working with and thinking through. So this is another exhibition I did in Athens last year. And I became very, very fascinated with ex voto objects, which you can find in, Orthodox Greek churches, as, Catholic churches as well. These votive kind of offerings. And I was also looking at ancient jewelry, and I was looking at I found in museums and the display of those things. And again, this made me think about the relationship between scale and kind of intimacy, but obviously in a very different way. What kind of a painting can exist on this small scale? How, would it relate to this history of the miniature, I suppose, and things like Roman cameos? So the show was called Cameo. And also for me, importantly, something like costume jewelry, so I was interested in this idea of an object kind of pretending to be something, but also being very much what it was. So I made a series of these works on the floor, which consisted of found costume jewelry, objects that I made, so from kind of basically very low value materials, like this is a yogurt lid, like a foil drawn, inscribed on the back and sprayed gold. And then alongside found objects that I would construct, or materials that I would then construct myself. alongside these found objects. And really the work was kind of operating on these like 3 horizontal planes, you know, very the opposite of the screens in a way. You had the kind of this amazing terrazzo floor, which was incredibly dominating. And then you had the velvet, this velvet, kind of very matte velvet. And then you had these shiny kind of reflective objects on top. And, you know, it became a kind of almost topological or something, as well as kind of this strange ancient dig, like these little islands. And this is another work. And I constructed these things very intuitively, having amassed, you know, a lot of these objects. I was working within the jewelry district and collecting kind of very cheap jewelry findings, they call them, objects to make jewelry. Then alongside, I was making these very tiny, this is the beginning of working and kind of thinking about painting on this very small scale. And I made these kind of paintings on brass with a kind of resin-based paint, which were kind of in relation to these kind of ex voto portraits. So I'm kind of rushing through this a bit, but that kind of, yeah, I guess I was interested in this idea of the enamels, vitreous enamel, which is a medium that I've used for the edition. I really wanted to make use this medium of enamel, but it wasn't until I got back to the UK that I really got going with it. And we can talk more about enamel and the process, and it's a very magical kind of medium. But anyway, so I got back, and the last year and a bit, I've been artist in resident in Girton College in Cambridge. And really this show here is the most recent show. And it consists of a painting of a landscape of the college where I'm currently living. And, you know, it has this kind of these bucolic grounds, but also, and really importantly, around the college site are these roads, this network of motorways. So the site is really, you know, you can really hear the hum, like there's a kind of din of the roads, which really creates a very specific atmosphere. So I was really interested in kind of painting this atmosphere, this kind of sonic kind of atmosphere in a way. And, you know, how would you go about that? And how would you honor this contrast of very different kinds of environments? There's an orchard, which the painting depicts, as well as a tennis court. And I guess also being here at Girton, I was thinking these tiny cars. So the painting has these tiny cars with these headlights. So being here, I was really thinking a lot about scale, because it's like being in a village living in a university. I don't know, you know, if CA can testify. It's like on campus, you know, in one sense, you have everything you could ever need. You know, you never need to leave. In another sense, you're living in this tiny place, you know, this village of people. So I thought for this show, I really wanted to have these two contrasting scales. You know, I had worked in this large scale before, and then I was moving to this very, very small scale. And I wanted to kind of have these two, you know, how could you have these two things coexist? So I made this show with this large landscape painting, and then across the rest of the gallery, you had these very small vitreous enamel works, which are a kind of miniature painting. And the enamels, the imagery of the enamels, which you can start to see now, was supposed to kind of reflect the imagery of the painting. So you know, there's a kind of celestial, they're a kind of constellation in a way. They're kind of celestial band around the gallery space. and some of them have moons. Some of them depict moons, some depict landscapes. These are kind of cosmic pebbles, what I call cosmic pebbles. Green cosmic flag. And I was making these eyesores because everyone, I was sleeping terribly, and everyone was sleeping terribly, I think, at one point. This is a crater moon. So some of the moons that I made were kind of very specifically abstract, and some were personified. These are traffic light pendants, two-sided. Some works, so and some were these very, very kind of boldly faced moons. So this is blood moon, this is sick and tired moon, and this is gammon moon and black-eyed moon. So I think really I'll leave it there, because I just wanted to kind of give everyone a sense of the different scales, the different relationships to painting, I suppose, and also this question of intimacy in relation to scale. And I think that's something that maybe we can talk about a bit. And also this idea of atmosphere, I suppose, and environment making. And I loved it when you talk, CA, about this idea of orchestrating your own space. Like this is such a beautiful idea. So I'll leave it there, but hopefully that gives you some context at least.
That's fantastic, Luke. Was that a banana on the floor beneath your painting?
Yes, thank you for noticing the banana. Yes, that we can talk about the banana, but I mean it's a kind of figurative and literal, trip up, but not in the sense like I'm kind of playing a trick on you, but it just the painting felt so reverent by itself on that wall, and I wanted something that was literally low, like almost like a forgotten, slightly abject thing, next to it. So,
well, I think ambivalent man's eyebrows are perfect. He looks like he's saying, "I'm ambivalent." I mean, you just hear him saying he's ambivalent.
Oh, I'm glad. The eyebrows. It's all in the eyebrows, I think. That's.
The moon is a bit like ambivalent man.
Say again.
Moon Penny's a little like ambivalent man.
There's definitely a relation. They're a relation, a celestial relation. I'm glad you think that.
Oh, your celestial stones are quite lovely, and that green flag. So the thing is, the Moon Penny, this collaboration we're doing, you were already making these enamel pieces of artwork.
I was making the enamels, yeah. But I mean, I think it's interesting to talk about the kind of, I guess, the idea of a collaboration, what it means for you and what it means for me. And because I think it was important that although I had made work that was related to this, it wasn't like I made this work and then you responded to this work. It was, I made these moon pennies in batches, over quite a long period of time. I think I had made one or a few before you wrote the rituals, but really it was a kind of conversation, wasn't it? I think
it was, and I have to say right from the beginning, it's been a pleasure working with you, and thank you, Daniel, for everything you've done, and Mary and everybody involved with this. But one of the things I was really pleased with this was that it was not ekphrastic poetry, which I don't like. I am anti-ekphrastic when it comes to, I don't ever blame the poet. I just sort of feel like ekphrastic poetry has kept poets like the indentured servants of artists for centuries. But this was an actual collaboration.
Sorry, CA, can you just unpack that term for me? Sorry, I'm behind you on that.
Oh, well, ekphrastic poetry, it's a lot of, to me, I mean, I know this is my own interpretation of it, but it feels like praise poems for the artist's work. And that is not necessarily true entirely. but that's how I feel. It's more of a feeling. And, you know, okay, so here's an example, and I'm not going to say who, so I'm not here to gossip. I'm usually the subject of gossip, so I'm not going to add to that. There's an artist, a photographer, not mentioning their name, but their assistant wrote to me and said, oh, so-and-so is looking for 12 poets to write poems to go with 12 of so-and-so's photographs. And I said, oh, really? Well, is so-and-so going to make 12 photographs that go with poems by the 12 poets? Oh, well, no, that's not how it works. And I said, well, you need to end this immediately because it's a disgrace to poetry. And then, you know, it was just antagonistic. And then I was thrown off the project, which I didn't want to be on it in the first place. But in this case, it's not like that at all. And I've collaborated with other artists like Candace Lynn in LA or Jason Dodge. And now, but what we're doing is a little different. But generally when I'm collaborating, I create 50% of a ritual. The artist will create 50% of the ritual, put that together. We'll both do the ritual, and then the results are our collaboration. You know, mine will be a poem, and then like an installation that Candace would do, or, you know. But with this, I loved it because what we're doing is we're asking everybody to collaborate with us.
Yeah. I mean, and I think we can talk about how the edition, of course, is more than just, you know, your contribution and my contribution. It's also, you know, work form, Jake at work form, the design, you know, company that we collaborated with too. But I mean, I just wanted to say that, like, oh yeah, do you want to demo the?
Oh, it's so beautiful. I'm sure you've already seen it, but yeah, look, Moon Penny. It's quite lovely.
And we can talk about the Matchbox maybe, but I just wanted to say, like, for me, it was really exciting to get the opportunity to work with you, because I have been, you know, I haven't been making these kinds of works for that long, but ever since I, you know, started, I kind of felt, because of their scale, obviously, that they elicit, you know, touch, and they elicit to be held, and to be held privately, and to be carried, and to be moved. But I really couldn't. It was like I was so absorbed in the medium, in the process, material process of making them, that was just like this kind of supra kind of question, which I couldn't engage with. It was too heady, you know. And I think with this, it's like I feel like this is like, I couldn't get there without, you know, now it's kind of this edition is really triggering loads of, you know, ways to think about embodying these works, you know, and having them be an active object, you know, having them be able to be physically engaged with in a meaningful way. So that's, you know, that's really exciting for me, because I feel like I couldn't have got there without you know, this collaboration. So,
well, I was excited to be invited to work with you for this. Yeah, I'm a Capricorn poet, and we're all about the tactile, and we really like eat the dirt kind of thing, you know, that's Capricorn writing. So using Moon Penny, and I was thinking, like, how can we do this? You know, I'm assuming that some of the people receiving Moon Pennies. By the way, I really loved those photographs early on where you had all the Moon Pennies together, because it was the last time on Earth that they were going to be together, you know. Then they were out in the London, out in the, like, the UK postal system. But I thought, you know, so there's going to be some children who are going to be involved with this. So, like, I didn't want to just make rituals where I'm doing bizarre things all the time. I wanted to be, so I made, you know, the moon castle is one of them. You want to see my moon castle?
yes.
Yeah. Okay, but keep in mind, it's just gonna look like a pile of garbage, because it is. But because you're supposed to save your garbage, you know, for a week. This is about a month. And so here's my little moon castle down here. But by nighttime, it doesn't look like that. You know?
Oh wow, that's
And,
great.
there's a company called Lesser Evil in the United States. We shouldn't be allowed to have anything called Lesser Evil, frankly. But I was thinking, well, that'd be a good name for the castle. You know, like a Lesser Evil castle. Like, you can either spend a month in the dungeon being tortured, or you can be invited to a very nice party.
Do you think that, I mean, I'm just,
Candle. I use these little candles to light it up at night.
well, I'm still in the process of constructing my moon castle, but do you think it's, how do you want to, because obviously some people will have the addition and some people will not, so they maybe won't know what we're referring to.
Right, well, we should read them. Can I share one more thing about my moon castle?
Yeah.
So, I'm in Seattle, which for those of you who are not familiar with Seattle, it's in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. And it is the world's only non-tropical rainforest. So the climate is, look, it's a rainforest. There's a little insect that I absolutely fall in love with here called, it's like a little woodlouse. It looks like the prehistoric trilobite. You know, oh, I found a picture of them online to share with you all. So here, let me explain what's going on. This is part of Moon Castle. Believe it, there's a reason I'm bringing this up. Oh, I just love them. Look at that. Isn't that adorable? So here's the thing. These little creatures, they don't bother anybody. And everybody acts like they should all be murdered. But they want to come into your home to hibernate. So what I do though is I've made these tiny little caves for them in these cloths, and they're all around the Moon Castle. They're like in their hide. They don't bite you. They're not bothering your house. They just want to sleep for the winter and then go back outside and eat dead trees. But anyway, the Moon Castle, Moon Penny, has a bunch of these. When I find them, I just put them in these little caves I've made, and they all just stay there. But they're part of this. They're part of the moon. They're part of Moon Penny.
Well, I feel like I want to ask you loads of questions about Moon Castle, but maybe, what do you think? Do you think it would be a good time to read the ritual, or should we leave it?
Yeah. No, let's do it. And you're going to show your animation?
Yeah, we can do it then. We can do that now. Would that make sense? Yeah, okay, let's try. So I've made an animation, just to very quickly explain what I documented all 120 pennies, and then cut them out and the animation is actually only 9 seconds, but it's looped so that you probably won't notice that. Let me just find it here. And okay, whenever you're ready, CA.
Okay. I wanted to create 3 rituals to go with these beautiful moon pennies Luke made. And so I made 3 different rituals for people to try. The goal really is for everybody to make their own eventually, but this is something to try. First is called Moon Castle. Begin saving your trash, all those wrappers, boxes, and bags. Designate a space in your home for this ritual on the floor or table. Consider an area that you can return to every day for a month. Begin on the full moon, end on the full moon. Each day, bring your latest trash to the Moon Castle construction site. Use tape and glue, give it your flair, transform your waste into drawbridges, turrets, battlements, maybe a moat or curtain wall, and then write in your notebook. At night, sit at the construction site with Moon Penny and a small candle illuminating the castle from a different position each time. Sit across the room and study the shadows and light through binoculars. Then write in your notebook. Look again, slowly searching for a small crevice or crease for Moon Penny. Then place them there. Return to studying the castle, allowing the slow picture through the binoculars to unfold a drama centered on Moon Penny. Now write in your notebook. Ritual number 2, moon water. Bring a pitcher of water and a clear pint glass to the table. Mark the glass midway with a pen. Then place Moon Penny in the bottom of the glass. Listen very closely while pouring the water to the mark on the glass. Pour the water back into the pitcher and repeat this 3 times. The 4th time, pour the water with your eyes closed, listening to the water meeting the mark. Then drink the water. Place Moon Penny on your tongue. Close your eyes and listen carefully to every sound you can hear. Wait, keep listening, hearing layers you might not register unless you sit very still and allow your ears to absorb for you entirely. Wait, just when you thought you heard it all, wait, wait. Now suck on Moonpenny while you write in your notebook. Ritual number 3, moon burial. For a week, take Moonpenny with you wherever you go. Each day on your travels, stop several times to narrate what you see, holding Moonpenny close to your lips. Before going to sleep, bury Moonpenny in a potted plant. Then place it near you, where you will rest your head. Have a wire sticking out of the soil, the other end connecting with Moonpenny. When you wake, touch the tip of the wire for a few minutes with your eyes closed, then write in your notebook. Now exhume Moonpenny, placing them on your forehead, just above your nose. Then lie still with eyes closed for a few minutes. Now write in your notebook again.
Fantastic.
You know, the idea was that I talked with you a little bit before this, and the thing is about that 2p penny in England, it's designed in such a way, made in such a way that it is actually magnetic, right?
Yes, it's basically steel. So there's some iron in the steel, which makes it magnetic, exactly. And it's plated with copper. So I actually really love that sense of the penny being a kind of like it's decorated with copper, you know, like it has a kind of facade, you know. But that was I love that it was so wonderful to hear you read the rituals, and they really come alive. I also am really enjoying is it crows outside your...
Oh yeah, this is one of the world's largest population of crows, and
Yes.
I'm doing a ritual every day with the crows where I feed them. These are my breakfast crows. So the breakfast crows are very different. They're sort of like these unruly teenager crows. So they're out there eating peanuts and crackers and cranberries that I have on the windowsill.
I also am living with what feels like thousands of crows as well. So we share that. But I had a question about like Mooncastle, I suppose, and specifically the use of binoculars. It feels like you often it feels like a lot of the writing, a lot of the rituals will kind of focus in, like hone in on often like a particular sense, like hearing or a taste or and obviously with vision. In this case, there's a sense of looking through binoculars and magnifying in a way, becoming very, very close, physically close to something through a kind of visual tool. And I just wanted you to expand a bit about this idea of like looking closely, like what it means to you, and being close to the world, close to the things in the world, and how that, the use of tools kind of to mediate that.
Oh, well, I mean, I believe that those of us who are constantly creating things, we're always looking for the creative viability of the world around us, no matter where we are. But binoculars are a very special tool. I think everybody should be bringing binoculars to the museum. Now, the thing is, the museum guards, no matter where you're at, they will give you a little trouble at first because they don't know what you're doing. But there's no museum that has any type of bylaws or whatever that says patrons cannot have binoculars. But if you're going to go look at a Mark Rothko painting, you should at least be able to look at it as close as you can. And binoculars are the only way to do it, But as far as this, I thought like your Moonpenny, I mean, the scale of it is just phenomenal. I love how small it is. I love what you're able to do on that small surface. And the best way I think to really observe it is from a distance through lenses that can get up close. It's much, much more exciting than it is sitting with it in your hand. Also, I like working with magnifying glasses too, and microscopes.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to, on I mean, let me just share the film one more time, because I wanted to just see, because by taking images of the moon pennies, you can really see the detail of.
Oh yeah, they're remarkable.
And really it feels like it's out of my hands. It's just the thing about enameling. So it's vitreous enamel, just to very quickly explain the process, if you don't know, it's glass powder which you then melt at high temperatures in a kiln. But you can do several firings. Unlike ceramics, you can do multiple firings very, very quickly. It takes about a couple of minutes. So you can build up layers of color and layers of thin powdered material very quickly. And that gives you a real sense of color detail on a very small scale, which is quite hard to see well, you can see it in the flesh, certainly. But I think when I took these photos, I was like, I kind of was very happy to kind of see it slightly on another level, almost as though you're looking at the moon through a telescope.
Yeah.
Kind of see. Anyway, I won't show you all 120, but I just wanted to show it's a very different thing when you just see the stills.
Oh, maybe you can keep doing that while we're talking about it.
Okay, sure.
I think it's just beautiful seeing them like that. They don't need to see our faces. I'd rather see moon pennies. Oh yeah, look at those eyes. Now there's ambivalent man.
Yes.
On the moon. Ambivalent man on the moon. It's very good.
Eyebrows.
So, okay, so let me ask you this, Luke. We've never discussed this, and I was saving this for today. So when you were first approached about this project, were you already doing the enamel for this other show and you decided to do this, or how did that come about?
Yes. I was, so I had been working with the medium for, maybe 6 months before I was approached to do the edition. And at first, I think I was asked, oh, I don't suppose you'll be able to do, a vitreous enamel work for the edition. And they're all hand painted, they're all handmade. So it's 120 handmade individually, each layer, each side has about 3 or 4 firings. So it wasn't it was labor intensive, let's put it that way. It wasn't like a quick flick of the brush over a series of watercolor paper or something. But not that there's anything wrong with making an edition very quickly. And in fact, the spirit of KPS maybe is a bit more like shooting from the hip than this, perhaps. But I just, I had been making not these works. It was really just the sense of like, well, what can I do? How can I make 120 enamels? And I suddenly thought, well, if I was to use a coin, a copper coin, then it might just work because it's small enough and it's already cut, and you can get hold of them quickly. Some of the work is done for you, basically. So yeah, it was already, but the idea I had been making moons, but I think that also this idea of moon penny, like I was talking to Dan about this. I love the fact that moon penny is without the definite article. And I'm not even sure if you can even, maybe you can't articulate. I think you named moon penny. I think I was referring to them as like tuppenny moons, which is a bit kitsch in a way. And, things like that. And I think you named the moon penny, but it's not the moon penny or it's just moon penny, zero article. I mean, I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of punctuation, grammar, but like as a poet, is there some way that you can kind of talk about that?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no gender. Was very clear. I was very careful to not have gender in the rituals. It's a moon penny. Yeah, no the.
I love that.
There are too many thes in the world.
So I mean, I feel like there's so much. I feel like it's already nearly 7 o'clock, and we said that the it would be roughly an hour. I feel like we've covered about 0.1% of the ground that I had hoped to. So I mean, I don't know.
What else would you like to talk about, though, Luke?
Well,
Is there something?
What else? There's so much. I had some other questions for you. Hold on.
While you're doing that, Luke, do you mind if I just throw in a question that's come to us from the room?
Yes.
And I think this in some way touches on something about the sort of modesty or the smallness of the action or the engagement that this project enables or facilitates or encourages, and yet that smallness, that presentness within both of the elements of the project don't expect minimal implication. There is a hope that there's this kind of energy that's generated through this project. At least that's how I understand it. To kind of take a kind of sideways look at that, a question in the chat. So please, everybody else, if you're ready to chat with and fire questions, please do. It reads, on the 21st of this month, the transit of Jupiter and Saturn apparently are signaling the beginning of the age of Aquarius. Does Conrad or Luke have any thoughts about this? This year seems like a conflation of many things. So what we're talking about perhaps is a change. There's something astrological occurring, and we've just been through extraordinary trauma on a number of levels. Do we think, I mean, are you interested? Do you have anything to say in that regard about how the cosmic spheres may be about to bring about or enact change?
I defer to CA for this particular.
Why? Oh, okay. I don't know. Yes, Jupiter, victory. Why not? You know, the magician card in the tarot deck, where this tarot card, where there's one hand up in the air with the finger pointed up and the other one pointed down. The poet William Blake has many paintings like that. It's you're bringing Jupiter down and grounding it, and it's it's a big deal. I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, I'm so grateful that Mercury retrograde's over. We had an election, a presidential election over here during that, and you see how that's turned out.
I mean, I certainly feel like this year, Nina is saying this year seems like a conflation of things, like a kind of conflation is a kind of collapse, like it feels like,
well,
there's a kind of series of collapses that have happened.
We're talking about Saturn, right? So currently we're in Sagittarius, and by the end of this month we'll be going into Capricorn, and that is ruled by Saturn. That's the old god, right? Eating his children. But so it's all about responsibility. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Thanks for addressing that, but I'm conscious that what we're involved with is something much more on the ground, perhaps experiential, perhaps to use CA's term, and maybe extreme presentness. Is there something along those lines that what I'm interested in? Perhaps us, whilst bearing in mind the cosmic order, to also think about. I'm interested in modesty and humility and the kind of the intimacy of this work and these actions. And I suppose I was interested in asking you both a question about, and maybe it's a silly sort of art world question about, but where does the work exist? I'm fascinated by the fact, CA, in the rituals, you constantly return to this this statement, and now write, and now take up the notebook, and now write, suggesting that there will be something that will come out of this piece of writing. And yet it feels to me like the ritual itself is a poem. It is a work. It is something that that is in some way, it's not an end in itself, but perhaps nothing is an end in itself, that everything is part of a chain of events. So I wondered if maybe you might say something about what this drive to inspire writing in others means in relation to the thing that we are shared, the thing that comes to us.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is every human being alive is creative. And every opportunity we have to relay that information, remind people of that, the better, because it is only the creative people who are going to figure out the solutions for what is needed, right? If you're just following along, there's not much point, you know, but creativity gives us the opportunity to change what's ahead of us.
I was really, you know, interested in your notes on notes, the writing on note taking. That's also in the, you know, part of the publication, and this idea of like the mind loop that you talk about. You know, it feels like I'm intimate with the mind loop. It's to the extent that it's almost like, you know, when something pathological is kind of like you're afraid to let go of it because you're so used to it, you know, you're so it's like a friend, you know, even though you know it has kind of malignant tendencies or intentions for you, and I was just wondering about this idea of the mind loop, because it seems so sensitive to the idea of creating something, in terms of like, you know, the stage of creating things. You know, there's different and I think it was very, in a way, quite brave of you to try and formulate in these different stages the way that, you know, the kind of psychic dimension of creating something. You know, like it's quite a hard thing to articulate. When you articulate it, you kind of really like, you make it an object, you know. And I think a lot of people want to just keep the act of creation as this kind of completely nebulous, fluid, inarticulable thing. And you have actually gone quite far to try and articulate it. And I just, you know, so can you maybe, I don't know, that's a really not, it's not really a question, but can you kind of talk about this idea of the mind loop, and then how note taking, and I think it's almost like you're trying to get people to like excuse themselves from, or recuse themselves from like the things that they trip up on all the time when they're thinking about making things, you know.
Oh, well, we're very fragile, all of us, right? I mean, we're constantly dealing with all kinds of feelings throughout the day. And when you bring yourself to a position where you're going to start creating, oftentimes those things and feelings you've been experiencing get in the way. And so there's a mind loop that just sort of takes over and it just sort of runs. So I like to get out of that, because the writing I do is not expository. Those notes are not, I mean, you saw the poems I read earlier, they have nothing to do with extinct animals, you know, but that's what that ritual was. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say this, the mind loop, yeah, there's that. But the thing is, you've created something here that is conductive, which is what I love about it, that object. So that third ritual with the wire underground,
Yes.
and whispering to it all day. That's the thing about enamel. That's the thing about copper. That's the thing about metal. It absorbs, I would say, reaction, but it really is sound, right? The sound is from a reaction. It's sort of like, you know, Nikola Tesla has this thing where he says, if you understand the secrets of the universe, focus on energy, frequency, and vibration. And I feel like this object that you've made handles all three of those things.
Well, I think that particular ritual really, brings that out really, really well. I mean, I wasn't aware that we have copper inside of us. You know, we have like we're like 0.0001% copper. We have like 2 to 3 milligrams of copper in our bones and in our, and they produce it's a kind of electron, they're like electron generators basically. Obviously copper is very conductive material, and I love the wire, the kind of earthed wire in moon burial sticking out, and also just the idea of the burial. I mean, maybe we can talk about the kind of box as well, as a kind of like, what is this box? It's a matchbox, but it's really oversized, and you kind of, it's like a bed, which is very close to a burial. It's a very, it feels like, and then here lives Moonpenny on the front. Here lives Moonpenny is this kind of, again, this kind of almost archaic form of here lies Moonpenny.
Right.
So I was interested in all of that kind of.
I think it was you who said, I think when we were working on that, I was the one who said, let's call it Here Lies Moonpenny. And I think you were the one that said, no, it's not dead.
Oh, really? I don't know.
You were the one who said, here lives Moonpenny.
Oh, okay. Well, I will take credit for that then. Maybe Dan, I mean, I literally have probably hundreds more questions, but maybe Dan, I just thought before we go, because I'm aware that it's 10 past already, do you think like maybe you could talk about this a bit about the edition series, and the kind of spirit of that, how it came about that Kingsgate did it.
Gladly, thank you, Luke, and thank you to the two of you for teasing out some of these kind of small perhaps observations that have come about through this relationship that you've had in the gestation of this project. And I could have sat between the two of you firing questions one way or another, but they would have been external to the project, whereas the conversation you are able to share with us, with great generosity, is actually about the minutiae, about the small decisions, about the kind of the action and reaction, the conversation, the collaboration. So that is a thrill for a project like Kingsgate Postal Service. So Kingsgate Postal Service really, yes, galleries and projects closed down, and there was a moment of not knowing, what can we do? There were lots of opportunities lost. So we just, I come from a generation where things like mail art are important, where the gift economy, generosity, it's not necessarily an anti-marketplace stance, but it suggests that there needs to be a space that is other to the marketplace. So this opportunity in a moment, and again in a moment of exploding kind of digital interfaces, what I wanted to do was find a way of bringing artists together and then sharing the consequence of that meeting with a number of recipients by virtue of an envelope falling through a letterbox. The project was no more complicated than that. I suppose it became slightly not complicated, but we kind of made life interesting for ourselves at Kingsgate when we stipulated that each package would contain writing and what, let's call it, a visual artwork, and that neither must be subservient to the other. So essentially that is Kingsgate Postal Service. It exists in 15 issues. We're around halfway through the first section of those, and they come out every couple of weeks. So it's been a thrill to work on.
Dan, can I just thought I'd share, because I love it so much, the where is it now? Is this it? I just thought I would share the on the website. There's like a kind of little. Did you write this down?
It evolved, yeah.
It's great. Do you want to read it, or can I read it?
I'll read it. KPS
Right.
celebrates the subscription club and the thrill of getting something through the post. KPS is odd, playful, and generous. KPS is like a hurriedly scribbled holiday postcard from a friend, a missive of love in spite of its smudgy ink blots. KPS is not precious, but contains precious things. KPS is an analog network for distributing digital thoughts. KPS shares ideas and peculiarities with equal verve. KPS is the place where one envelope contains work by an award-winning novelist and a recent RCA graduate, and the next contains work by a Japanese collective and a curatorial project based in a Brighton vape shop. KPS is like finding a package on the doormat, addressed in a handwriting that is familiar, but you can't quite remember whose it is. KPS is a burgeoning art collection that fits in a jiffy bag. So that's the kind of premise when we dreamt this thing up, and we started to share that with artists and writers and said, look, would you like to get involved with this initiative? But I've got to say that everybody dealt with it differently. So there was no kind of conventional or formulaic way of addressing this question. So every fortnight, these packages that arrive on doormats are different and richer for it.
I think. Do you think I feel like that's a really great way to end the to end the evening. What do you think? It just feels like it's. I love the spirit of the project, and I'm very happy to have taken part. So.
That's terrific. CA, have you got some closing notes or remarks?
No, could we take the share screen off?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Because I would like, I've been honored and thrilled to be working with you all. I have a request. Daniel, could you walk closer to your camera lens so we can see these drawings of these flowers you're wearing? Is that a passion flower? Oh yeah, that's nice. Look at that. Ooh.
That's a way to end.
Yeah.
But before we do, it's been my pleasure to be involved with this event this evening. And I want to thank you all for coming and joining in with us. But my true thanks go to Luke and to CA, who have been generous and wholehearted and just fun to be around. So what a privilege and a pleasure. At the same time, I'm going to extend some further thanks to Jake Hopwood, Charlie Abbott and Alex Hoff at Workform, who've been amazing partners through the whole of this project, and to Mary McAnallen and to Ellie Davies, who have been making Kingsgate Postal Service happen for Kingsgate over the last 6 months. So thank you to all, but thanks mostly to CA and to Luke.
Thank you. Yes, big shout out to Ellie and Mary as well. They've been amazing. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so sad this is over. Thank you. Much love. Thank you.